Doug, it's always a pleasure to sit down and talk with you. It's been a year, a little over a year since the last time we talked.
Yeah.
You've done so much over that time, I guess. There's been so much that's happened because now COVID's almost over.
Right.
You were in the midst of COVID, and that was something. Now we're going to be able to take our masks off. I think they said it's going to be March the 13th. I believe it's a Monday. March the 13th,
really?
yeah.
Last I heard it was May, but okay, great, yeah.
No,
March,
it's March. It's in March.
Wonderful.
No, March,
Good,
because
good
they've already
stuff.
decided in the international schools, as a matter of fact,
Well,
next Monday, they're going to make it so parents can come in and act pre-COVID, the way they did pre-COVID time.
Okay.
So yes, it's March 13th, they've
Right.
decided. It wasn't May, it's March.
Glad for the change.
So let me see, when we were first talking stuff, if people that want to know, all of you that want to know about Doug and his initial podcast, go back, type in his name, and you'll be able to see the podcast before, but it's actually going to be linked to this, so you can see the first podcast, because in this podcast, we're going to talk to Doug about where he is now and what he's planning for the future, because it's a very bright future. I'm sure you do. So, where are we now, Doug?
So about a year ago, just starting kind of a new role, country manager, focusing on some IT consulting and whatnot, and had a good time. Did what we came to do, building the local team, particularly with context for domestic clients and how we grow there and how we build on the relationship. Because that's kind of what I bring, right? A long-term Japan kind of whatnot. So fast forward a year and a bit, and here we are, and kind of delivered on that and looking for the next step. At the time, I believe part of the conversation was we talked about Utah and my background there and where we go and where we're going to stay, where home was. And you know, in it's been much more than just a year we've been thinking about it, of course. But we've kind of come to the point of saying that we love the States. We have, my daughter's probably going to always be there. We're going to have the split family.
But where is she? Is she in Utah?
She's in New York.
In New York?
She's on Broadway. That's what she does.
You told me she was just in a play, right?
She just finished Maria and Sound of Music, headlining, wonderful reviews, everything in Chicago.
And she was Maria.
She was Maria, yeah. She's done a lot of stuff. It was great to go see the show, and at the end of the show, everyone was clapping, and she comes out and it went really well. It was a wonderful show.
Was that the first time to see her show?
No, she'd been on King and I with Ken Watanabe at Lincoln Center. She was part of the cast. She was ensemble there.
Right.
She was one of the.
Is this her first time being lead?
This is the biggest lead that she's had.
Okay,
Let me put it that way.
Okay.
She's done a number of things. And that's kind of parsed into her now being in Sweeney Todd, which is kind of the up-and-coming latest show in Broadway. So this will be on Broadway. The director of Hamilton is directing this, and she's doing that. So talking about my daughter, that's what she does, and she's based in New York, and her husband's there. He teaches theater for a charter school in Harlem, actually, and he's loving that experience of being there with the culture and the
Do they have
people and
children?
everything. They do not. They do not.
Right.
But they're there. They're focused on the States. Next is my boy Alex, who is an actuary, and he was in New York and actually living in the same building as my daughter. But he got his credentials, and he said, "You know, I miss Japan." And so he's recently come back. I mean, they both missed Japan. They loved them.
Right,
They're
of course,
all
of
made in
course.
Japan, and they came to school, ASIJ and whatnot. But he now has recently come back, and as a full-blown actuary, is working for a company in Shibuya, and kind of saying this is home. And then
How long has he been back?
He's only been back, it's been less than a year, it's been like 6 months, he's just getting going. But then number 3, and our last child, is at university in Utah, University of Utah, studying computer science with an entertainment arts engineering twist, so it'll be interesting to see where it goes. And we don't know, will he be in the US, will he not, right? I don't know. So what I'm saying is the family's kind of going to be split one way or the other. It'd be nice to go back and forth, and I'm sure we will a little bit. But I had I still have a wise aunt who once said, "Don't move where the kids are because they'll pick up and leave." Right? Not out of spite, but just because life takes them away. And I may actually have said that last time.
You did.
Did I? Okay,
You did.
there we go. But it's I believe that. So it's more, where do we want to be? And we've looked at our 30 years in Japan. I've been here altogether 30 years, and realized that this is it's both home for us, for our family. The U.S. is home too. We go back, but this is kind of where it is. culturally a little bit, but also it's a place where I think we can give back a little bit more, if that's right. Kind of sounds, paternalistic. I'm wonderful. I can save the world. No,
I think it's something you come to the realization. Like it's at the end of my podcast, I always say this: it's all on loan.
Yeah.
So wouldn't you like to have the pleasure of being the one that gives it back?
Yes. And that's kind of where it comes down to. After all this time, where are we going to be comfortable? Where we want to be when we're 90 or something, right? From a cultural perspective, interaction with people and all that. I mean, my 90-year-old mother loved the States, but okay, we'll be fine here. But it's a place where I can take my time here. I'm hoping, and what I'm directing more, is and then say, how can I contribute back to the community, the people, the industry that did so much for me.
Right.
This wonderful community, we are here, right, as part of it, but then the broader community as well. And so we've kind of come to that realization that this is home. I think I may have already said it, but I'm not looking to retire, but life shifts and we do things a little bit different, so there'll be different emphasis here. As I get more involved, at least where I want to continue to build on the corporate governance emphasis and the risk management work that I've been doing. I've still been very much in the saddle with various C-suite roles, being chief of staff, being CEO, being chief risk officer, being all these kind of things. So I've really been in that mode, but I've also been, because I've enjoyed it so much, doing a lot of work with a corporate governance network is a big group here that I've been involved with. Of course, Nick Bennis doing wonderful work with BDTI, with the Board Director Training Institute, taking his training, doing other training, teaching at Hitotsubashi is an accounting course, but really focused more on what the numbers mean, how do you present with them, how do you internally build with the numbers, right, as opposed to a technocrat, how do you calculate it? So it's taking those things and saying, here's how we impact the environment, here's how we impact the world we're in, here's how we give back. And so it's going more in that direction of being involved with boards or whatnot around there, an advisory role, rather than saying, where's my next CEO role?
I see.
There are some things that are taking us back to the States. I need to go back and sort out affairs there, because we'd always, is it normal to kind of assume you're going back to the U.S.? I think most people obviously they think that way. And so, but you then need, so if that was going to be home base, that means I've got to sort things out at some point. So we're going back. Whether it'll be 6 months or a year or two, we don't know. Like I mentioned, my boy is at university there, so being close to him for that period could be fun. But we'll sort that out and then be coming back. And exactly what form that will take, I don't know, but it will be in some mode where I can say, this is what I learned, this is the breadth, because I have a fairly broad experience background. This is the breadth of what I've taken, and this is where I think it can add value to your world.
Run through real quick where you work, where you've been, your background.
Okay, I kind of came up roughly through product development, so building products. That became more risk management, understanding the risk.
Was it all in Japan?
My early years as a missionary here, but then after that, went to business school. I came back. It's really been the financial industry that I've been involved with for the most part. Starting out in securities industry, that kind of then went to investment management and then insurance. So across the board, across all of financial markets, involved coming from a product development, risk management oversight, more into operational oversight, and then as a chief of staff and as CEO, more into management oversight. that's kind of the background.
I see. And what do you see for the future? What do you see? How do you see
So
the future?
to me, the extension of that, if you will, and it's already kind of been happening with my role as country manager, as COO, is to then not just be focused on delivering a technocrat answer, right? A plus B equals C or whatever it is, but it's to develop a business, develop a relationship, and then give back both to the company and then in a broader extent to the community. And that's why I mentioned, I think I was teaching at Hitotsubashi, and that was one, I love interacting with students, and I learn as much from them as they ever get from me, but it's also a way of going and saying, here's the perspective that I've gained, that I'm trying to share with the market. I've had interest in, I mentioned risk, but risk is not just market risk and liquidity risk and all these things and operational risk. It's the overall governance. It's how are we functioning as a society? Are we being sustainable? Diversity, are we bringing the people in that need to be there? And that, okay, there's some of it's the right thing to do. And I'm a church guy, I do believe in trying to do the right thing to do, but it's also the smart thing to do to get everyone involved. And through life, as you go through these various roles, you start to realize that that's really true. You need to embrace these people, you need to bring them in. And that message is not always well delivered or well received. So how can I bring my perspective to say, in corporate governance world, whether it's an external board or whatever, to say, here's the perspective that you can get from offshore, right? And there is some truth to, we need to be more focused on these various shareholders and stakeholders and whatnot. It's not just the cronies that are there, et cetera, et cetera. There's truth to that, but at the same time, don't just listen to those guys that are squeaking offshore, that this is the way it's in America, so therefore it's got to be done here. No, that's not the way at all. Part of it is, this is Japan, this is the culture, this is the way we do it. We need to be sensitive, but it's also that they're missing a lot of what's good here. So I have realized that it really is a community. Well, what's the right word? It's stakeholders more than just shareholders, and I'm a big believer that shareholders need to be more empowered. But there's also the stakeholders, and that can be used and has been used as a way of saying we keep the old cronies doing the same old thing because we're about shareholders, we're looking holistically, baloney, we're just looking at ourselves. So, but there's a lot of truth to that. We don't want US style corporate governance here, but we definitely need to change the corporate governance that is here.
That's interesting. But the companies you work with, they're mostly owned by Americans?
They have been international firms for the most part.
Right.
I have worked for Japanese firms in the past, but most of it through what I've described, with the financial industry.
Right.
It's been a breadth of U.S. capital, UK, Swiss, Polish, French.
Okay, so truly international.
So really international. So one of the things that I think I bring is experience and expertise in working in a multicultural, multilingual world, right? I say multilingual, I'm only bilingual.
But at one time they used to say, do you remember this? I think you might remember this, you may or not. They said if you spoke 3 languages, you're trilingual, 2 languages, you're bilingual, 1 language, you're an American.
Yeah, there you go.
But they changed that because all of the Hispanics moving over now, they're bilingual when our passport, but long time ago, I remember when our passport was only in English.
Yes, yeah,
right.
That's very true.
So, but now you're bilingual in the U.S.
People
speak Spanish and English.
It's
come that way, especially on the coast.
It's changing. Yeah,
on the coast, as far as Florida. I'm from California.
Yeah, even when you look at the maps and it's all red.
That's right.
It's all red. That still means that there's a mixture there.
There's a mixture there.
That's good. And so yeah. So you're bringing the different languages, the different cultures, and bring them together. How do you work together? How do you learn from each other? And diversity is a buzzword, but it's also because there's a lot of truth to it, right? Empowerment of women that we've been seeing in Japan more and more. Wonderful, hallelujah, keep going. That's right. But there's so much more to be done. so much more I want to learn, and maybe I can give back as well.
Yeah, I was wondering, have you ever thought about trying to teach, courses here to help to empower some of the people here?
Okay.
You've done it. You've already done it. But I mean, have you thought that that's something you'd like to go back into?
Yes. When in one of my roles at the Chief of Staff at AIG, we had specific empowerment sessions that we had a team of women executives that we're bringing on, and we're bringing people in. There's been various more country or industry-wide efforts involved with, and I really enjoyed those and interfacing with people. And when from a governance, corporate action perspective, that's a voice I always try to add as much as I can. I mean, I am who I am and that's fine, but to be a voice in that direction. So I have been teaching. I would love to continue to do so, and I think there is something to say. This is, well, I'm hesitating here. I've been in Japan too long, right? I can't just say this is the truth, right? It's always shades of nuances here.
That's right.
I'm going to say I walk the walk. I've talked the talk. Well, that implies that this is the walk or this is the talk. No, it's been my walk. It's been my talk.
And it's been effective.
But it has worked, and it's worked here, and it's not worked there. And I would love to share that and maybe give that back. I hadn't really thought, could there be some formalized way of training and help? But that would be a wonderful thing I'd be involved in doing, right? Because that's really kind of what, the next phase for me is, how do we give back? How do we say thank you? How do we, how do we make others' life better? Because, well, I can be selfish. It makes my life better too. Right. I find joy in bringing, sharing.
Well, they say you always have more pleasure in giving gifts than receiving. Because I think one reason is psychologically reason behind that. You're not obligated. When you're giving a gift to someone, you're no longer obligated. They are.
Well,
but then you have to learn how to be a good receiver too when someone's trying to do the same thing. Because for a long time, I remember in life, I didn't like getting gifts from people. I wouldn't, because I knew I'd be obligated. But I loved to give.
Yes. Well, okay.
So you learn to give them the same pleasure you're getting, because it does feel better to give than it does to receive. And it's a good feeling.
I agree. And I think when you get to a point, and not that I'm, there, but when you can say, okay, by giving this, maybe there's some obligation there, but who cares? When you can get beyond that, because it starts with, okay, I like this, I get it. Then it's like, oh, I'm going to give you that because then you owe me. And then the next one's like, so what? No, I love giving it to you, right?
That's right, that's right.
And okay, maybe you scratch my back someday, and that's okay. I'm not against that.
That's right.
But some people go through life, I think, at least it appears to me that they keep the balance sheet. And I've been there, I've looked at it, but it's never worked for me. And it's not what I recommend as a way of getting ahead or enjoying life as you do it.
That's right, that's right. Before I end, there's always a question I like to ask.
Yes.
I've asked you before, now you have a chance to really give me a good answer on this one.
Okay, better one than the last one. Yeah, we'll see, okay.
If, you don't have to, but if you had a magical wand and you could take all the knowledge you have now and go back in time and see the younger Doug, what age would you be and what advice would you give yourself?
When I kind of jokingly was thinking before, but I think it's very true. And I'll expand it, but it is kind of when I was 3 years old or 4 years old, and to say, be kind, be nice. It's not about one-upsment. It's not about who's the boss. It's not about that. And even if someone is in your face, you can still be nice and still be kind, because it brings joy to you and brings joy to them. Of course, that's an easy runaway answer. But I do think it is come to that. And then with that being kind, you can realize, you can say, have confidence. So then maybe I would come to my mid-30s or something there when I was just getting going in my area of expertise. At this particular time I'm thinking of was a very technical derivative risk management role when everyone was PhDs and knew all the math and knew all these things, because I'm interested in everything. I want to know the why of everything, but my background I probably do best by being able to assimilate it together and see what works and then make it happen. But I kind of want to know all the pieces. And I would say, Doug, and frankly, this is kind of how it developed, so maybe I would be singing to the choir already, but maybe you could speed along by saying, have confidence in what you can do. Learn what they can do, lean on their expertise, but that does not denigrate or talk down to you what you can do. So be confident in what you can do, even though they may seem to have the key answer.
Because of the credentials they're coming in with.
Yeah, the credentials there. And
but you don't know if they do or not.
You don't know if you do or not, and that of course then ignores, Harvard MBA, I guess that's worth something, right? But
I think so.
But for me, as a person having that, I'm like, so what? I'm feeling bad because I don't have a PhD in something.
But I'm feeling good because I have a Harvard MBA.
The wrong answer. The Harvard. There you go. You got to get that right.
Harvard.
Yeah. Well,
Harvard does a good job of making people feel good about going there. That's for sure. They let you know.
Yes, it's a wonderful
That's
community.
the Rolls Royce of universities.
Well,
I mean, it's not like you don't feel one thing someone says. It doesn't matter where they went. They didn't go to Harvard.
They didn't go to Harvard. Well, I don't know a good translation for this, but in Japanese there's a phrase that said kussatte-mo-tai, right? It's like, and so tai being the fish, the sea bream or whatever, right? It's supposed to be the nicer you bring at celebratory events and whatnot. And the translation is, even if it's a bit rotten or a bit old, it's still the right thing. So that's Harvard. Even if it's got problems, it's still Harvard.
It's still Harvard.
Go from there. But setting that aside, it's so easy to ignore your own successes or your Harvards or whatever credentials you may have.
Isn't that the truth?
And then I'd say, Doug, you can do a lot of good things. Embrace it, enjoy what they can do, and make the whole better. Build it together, because the whole is more than the parts.
That's right.
But it takes time to get the confidence to make that happen, to realize that that's the truth. So it wasn't a quick answer to your question, but it was a good one. There to
it
say,
was a good one.
Realize that the whole is more than the parts.
That's right. That's right. Now you always end. You give me some parting, always good advice, because you talked about being kind and stuff. What would you like to end with? Just something that you'd like to tell everybody that you think is really the key to how you've been. Who's Doug?
Try and be kind. Try and be serving of others, which doesn't mean you're a pushover. You can disagree and still be kind. So maybe, I think, say, if for parting words, and I think maybe I had to use this a year ago, but it really is kind of my motto, is that it's a choice whether you focus on the good or whether you focus on the bad, because they're both there. And I'm a big, let me expand that a little bit. I embrace uncertainty. Sometimes you just want to know everything in the world, and I realize that if you know everything, that means you're not growing, you're not learning anymore. So embrace the uncertainty, embrace the fact that you don't know, and then make the positive assumption. If Orville and Wilbur were trying to prove they could not fly, I don't think they ever would have, right? But they believed they could, a positive assumption, and by going forth and making the choice that it's going to happen, and you do. And all those terrible days when they could have chose the bad, they chose the good. So it's a choice. Choose the good, not the bad. Be kind. Smiles are contagious. Share them with others, and then you all feel better.
Fantastic, Doug.
Thank
Always
you.
a pleasure. We're going to do this again.
We will. I hope so. I hope so. Thanks so much.
You'll be back. I want to thank all of you for watching this. Make sure you press like and subscribe. And always remember, it's all on loan. So continue to reach for the stars, because you're too blessed to be stressed.